Something is happening across America. It's not always shown on the evening news, and it's not always talked about in boardrooms or state capitals. But the signs are there, if you know where to look. Lines at gas stations stretching around the block. Nurses walking out of understaffed hospitals. Teachers quitting mid-semester. Governors pleading for help just to keep basic services running. And while headlines still talk about recovery, millions of Americans are living a very different reality. Beneath the surface, deep cracks are spreading. And according to Elon Musk, who's been blunt about America's growing instability, some of these cracks aren't just economic. They're social, they're structural, and they're dangerously close to breaking wide open. We're about to take a closer look at 10 U.S. states that are hanging by a thread. Some of them will shock you. These aren't just poor or rural states. Some of them are rich, well-known, and full of promise on the outside. But when you peel back the surface, what you find is alarming. Rising debt, disappearing jobs, broken infrastructure, and communities on the verge of giving up. This isn't just about numbers. It's about families. It's about the people behind the data. And if these warning signs continue to grow, the collapse of these states won't just make the news, it will become personal. Because it won't be about a headline. It'll be about your home, your neighborhood, your future. So let's count down, starting with a state that many people think is untouchable, but is now dangerously close to unraveling. Number 10, California. The illusion of prosperity. When people think of collapse, they don't usually think of California. After all, it's the land of Hollywood, Silicon Valley, and golden coastlines. It's the world's fifth largest economy. Tech billionaires live here. Movies are made here. And from a distance, it looks like the future. But walk a few blocks off Sunset Boulevard, and you'll see another side, tent cities stretching for miles, boarded-up storefronts, and families sleeping in their cars. California is in trouble. The cost of living is out of control. Even a six-figure salary doesn't guarantee you a place to live anymore. Teachers, nurses, and public service workers are packing up and leaving, not because they want to, but because they have no choice. They can't afford to stay. And it's not just housing. California's public services are cracking under the pressure. The energy grid is overwhelmed. Wildfires are more destructive every year. Insurance companies are pulling out of entire counties because the risks are too high. That means homeowners can't rebuild after disasters, not because they lack the will, but because no one will insure them. The homeless population has exploded. In Los Angeles alone, over 75,000 people are homeless, more than the population of many small towns. And while the state pours billions into programs, the crisis only gets worse. California once represented the American dream. Now, in many places, it feels more like a warning. Because when even the wealthiest state can't keep up with its own promises, what hope is left for everyone else? Number 9, Alaska. America's last frontier is running out of time. Now this one might surprise you. Alaska. Wild, beautiful, untamed. A state known for its rugged independence, oil wealth, and vast wilderness. But even this icy paradise is showing signs of collapse. For decades, Alaska's economy has relied on oil. But global demand is changing, prices are unstable, and the state's revenue is drying up fast. The oil dividends that once gave every Alaskan a yearly payout, they've shrunk dramatically. And with that, so has the state's ability to pay for schools, hospitals, and roads. In remote villages, hospitals are closing permanently. Teachers are leaving. And basic supplies, food, fuel, medicine, have to be flown in at sky-high costs. Inflation here isn't a political talking point. It's a daily reality. Young people are leaving in droves. They don't see a future here. Jobs are scarce. Internet is unreliable. Transportation is expensive. And those who stay face brutal winters, damaged roads from melting permafrost, and growing wildfires in the summer. Climate change is hitting Alaska harder than almost anywhere else in the U.S. Entire villages are being swallowed by rising seas. Coastal erosion is forcing communities to relocate, and many don't know where to go. This isn't just about economics. It's about survival. And if Alaska, America's last frontier, starts to collapse, it will send a message the rest of the country can't ignore. Number 8, Arizona. The mirage of growth. Arizona looks like it's booming. People are moving in. Houses are going up fast. Sunshine, wide open spaces, and no state income tax. It all sounds perfect. But here's what's really going on. The growth is outpacing the resources. Fast. Arizona depends heavily on the Colorado River for water. That river is in crisis. Lake Mead and Lake Powell, two of the state's main water sources, have dropped to record lows. Farmers are being told to stop watering crops. Cities are digging deeper wells, hoping they won't run dry. And still, more homes are being built, more lawns are planted, more golf courses open. Phoenix has now broken records for the most days over 110 degrees. That's not just hot, it's dangerous. Emergency rooms are filling up with heatstroke cases. The electric grid is straining to keep air conditioners running, and many low-income families can't even afford to cool their homes. Add to that rising housing prices, inflation, and weak public transportation, and you've got a perfect storm. Public schools are struggling to keep up. Hospitals are overwhelmed. And the political system? Gridlocked. Lawmakers are too divided to take bold action, even as the ground beneath them dries up and cracks. Arizona's biggest challenge isn't growth, it's sustainability. And unless real solutions are found, the dream that drew people to Arizona might turn into a nightmare. That's just the beginning. These are only the first 3 states. And already, the picture is clear. Wealth doesn't mean stability. Sunshine doesn't mean safety. And growth doesn't mean survival. But if you think these states are in trouble, just wait until you hear what's happening in the next 7. Because what's coming next is even harder to believe. Make sure you stay with us as we uncover more of the truth, state by state, and reveal what Elon Musk warned us about before most were ready to listen. Number 7. Kentucky, a state losing more than jobs. Kentucky is a place full of pride. Coal country, horse farms, bluegrass roots. The kind of state where people look out for each other. But in the shadows of that strength, there's a deepening crisis that many aren't talking about. In parts of eastern Kentucky, the situation is heartbreaking. Towns built around coal have been left behind as the industry fades. Mines have shut down. Jobs are gone, and nothing has replaced them. Hospitals are closing not because of upgrades or mergers, but because they can't afford to stay open. Teachers in rural districts are buying supplies out of their own pockets while their pensions teeter on the edge of collapse. The state's pension system is one of the worst funded in America. And that's not just a financial problem, it's a time bomb. Then there's the opioid crisis. Kentucky has some of the highest overdose rates in the nation. Addiction has torn families apart, drained first responders, and left some counties with more funerals than job offers. And even though cities like Lexington and Louisville are pushing for progress, smaller towns like Hazard and Pikeville are fighting to stay alive. There's hope, tech startups, tourism, even small healthcare expansions, but it's not happening fast enough. And the younger generation? They're leaving. Not because they want to, but because they feel like they have to. And here's the hard truth. When a place loses its people, it doesn't just lose workers, it loses history, culture, and everything that makes it home. Number 6. Louisiana. Sinking in more ways than one, Louisiana is rich in spirit. The music, the food, the culture, it's like nowhere else in America. But that same state, full of color and life, is also one of the most fragile. This is a place where the land is literally disappearing. Every hour, Louisiana loses about 1 football field of land to erosion and rising sea levels. Think about that. Entire communities are being swallowed by the Gulf. And storms? They don't just damage homes, they destroy futures. After every hurricane, there's a scramble to rebuild. But now, insurance companies are pulling out. Homeowners can't get coverage. Businesses can't get protection. And many families are left to start over with nothing. The oil and gas industry once made Louisiana wealthy. Now, it's in decline. Refineries are cutting jobs. Regulations are tightening. And the money that once flowed through Baton Rouge is drying up. Poverty remains high. Public schools in many areas are failing. Rural hospitals are closing. And some neighborhoods in New Orleans are so underserved, they feel like separate countries entirely. Here's the deeper issue. Louisiana isn't just facing an economic collapse. It's fighting an environmental and cultural one. And if the state can't get the support it needs, there may come a day when entire towns vanish, not just on a map, but in memory. Number 5. Pennsylvania. Stuck between past and future, Pennsylvania helped build America. Its steel, its coal, its factories powered the country for a century. But now, the very cities that once stood tall are crumbling slowly and painfully. Take a drive through Johnstown, Erie, or Wilkes-Barre. The downtowns are eerily quiet. Shops are closed. The factories are rusted. And many of the homes sit empty, forgotten by the people who moved away in search of better. The divide between places like Philadelphia and rural Pennsylvania is growing by the year. While Philly evolves with tech startups, nightlife, and booming industries, small towns struggle to keep schools open and fire departments running. Infrastructure across the state is breaking down. Water systems in some towns are over a century old. Bridges are classified as structurally deficient, and public transportation? In some regions, it barely exists. Then there's the opioid epidemic, which hit Pennsylvania like a wrecking ball. Some counties report more overdose deaths than car accidents. It's a public health emergency, but it's also a sign of something deeper: hopelessness. Young people leave. Old neighborhoods fade. And the state keeps applying patches to problems that need a full rebuild. The spirit of Pennsylvania is still there, but without real change, it risks becoming a museum of what once was. Number 4, New Jersey. The debt behind the suburbs. When people think of New Jersey, they picture big suburban homes, busy highways, and the glow of New York City just across the river. On the surface, it looks stable, maybe even wealthy. But dig deeper, and the cracks are spreading fast. New Jersey is drowning in debt. Public pensions are severely underfunded, and the state carries one of the highest per capita debt loads in America. Taxes are through the roof: property taxes, income taxes, gas taxes. And still, it's not enough to plug the hole. People are leaving. Over 70,000 residents packed up and left in just 1 year. That's not a small dip, that's a mass exodus. And when people go, businesses follow. That means less money for towns, for schools, for services. It's a vicious cycle, and it's already affecting daily life. In some towns, schools are cutting extracurriculars, delaying textbook replacements, and even consolidating classes just to stay open. Some municipalities are so strapped for cash, they're laying off police officers and firefighters. This is a state that relies heavily on commuters. But what happens when remote work becomes the norm? When fewer people take the train to Manhattan? When offices shut down and taxes go unpaid? The truth is, New Jersey's image of strength hides a fragile core. Without big changes to spending, taxation, and long-term planning, this state could be facing a crisis far worse than it's ready to admit. These aren't just isolated problems. They're warning signs flashing red across the country. Jobs gone. People moving out. Public services breaking down. And the deeper we go, the more we realize that some of the most unexpected places are already unraveling. But the most shocking states are still ahead. And if you think what you've seen so far is bad, you haven't seen anything yet. Number 3, Connecticut. Quiet collapse behind the Ivy walls. Connecticut. When people hear the name, they picture charm. Ivy League colleges. Old money. Beautiful towns with white fences and tree-lined streets. It all looks pristine. But underneath that glossy image is one of the most fragile economies in America. Connecticut has the highest per capita debt in the country. Billions are tied up in underfunded pensions, and the state is spending more on debt interest than on fixing its roads or helping its schools. It's like a family maxing out every credit card, then borrowing just to pay the interest. Property taxes have soared. In some counties, families are being priced out of homes their grandparents built. Small towns are losing residents, not because they want to leave, but because they can't afford to stay. The corporate base that once helped Connecticut thrive is disappearing. General Electric? Gone. Alexian Pharmaceuticals? Gone. And when big companies leave, they take jobs, taxes, and stability with them. Even more concerning is the exodus of young people. The working-age population is shrinking every year. College grads don't stay. New families don't move in. Retirees remain, but they don't spend like younger households do. So where will the revenue come from in 10 years? Or 5? Hartford. The capital is already in financial emergency mode. It had to be bailed out by the state to avoid bankruptcy. And that raises a critical question. What happens when there's no one left to do the bailing out? This isn't a dramatic crash. It's a slow, silent drain. But that's what makes it so dangerous. Because by the time everyone realizes how deep the hole is, climbing out may no longer be an option. Number 2, Maryland. A tale of two realities. Maryland shines on paper. High median income. Proximity to Washington, D.C. A strong education system. And yet, there's a growing divide that's threatening to pull the entire state apart. Let's start with Baltimore, a city full of history, culture, and resilience. But also one facing staggering poverty, rising crime, and public schools struggling to hold onto teachers and students. Many neighborhoods are trapped in a cycle of disinvestment, broken windows, empty lots, gun violence, and families trying their best with what little they have. Outside the city, the suburbs are booming: Bethesda, Silver Spring, Columbia, modern, clean, full of opportunity. But this wealth isn't being spread evenly. In fact, Maryland has one of the largest racial and economic wealth gaps in the country. Housing prices keep climbing, even faster than wages. Families are moving further out just to afford rent, turning a 30-minute commute into 2 hours each way. And Maryland's aging infrastructure can't keep up. Bridges, water lines, and highways are wearing down fast. Traffic in the D.C. corridor is among the worst in the nation. The economy leans heavily on federal government jobs and contracts. That sounds secure until it's not. Every budget cut, every shutdown in D.C. sends shockwaves through Maryland's economy. If the federal government ever decides to tighten its belt long-term, Maryland could be in deep trouble. Meanwhile, an aging population is placing more strain on healthcare and social services, and many younger professionals are looking west or south to states with lower costs, more space, and fewer restrictions. So ask yourself this: what happens to a state when one part thrives while the other falls apart? Can Maryland really keep balancing this way, or is it already tilting toward collapse? Number 1, Illinois, the deepest hole in the nation. At the very top of this list, Illinois. Not because of shock value, but because the situation here is the most severe, the most complex, and the most dangerous. Illinois is carrying a staggering $140 billion in pension debt. That's not a typo. That's not hype. That's real. The state is borrowing from its future just to stay afloat today. It's like trying to fill a bathtub with the drain wide open. Property taxes in Illinois are some of the highest in the entire country, and they're still not enough. Schools are underfunded. Roads are crumbling, and small towns are hollowing out slowly, painfully. Chicago gets all the headlines. But go downstate, places like Rockford, Peoria, or Decatur, and you'll see a different picture. Downtowns are ghostly. Businesses have boarded up. Young people have left. And the only thing that keeps growing is the debt. Here's the scary part: Illinois is already beyond the warning signs. The state has been downgraded by credit agencies. It came within days of becoming the first U.S. state to have its bonds fall to junk status. If that happens, it's not just bad press. It means higher borrowing costs, fewer investors, and even more cuts to essential services. Police departments are cutting staff. Fire stations are closing. And pensioners, people who gave their entire careers to public service, are being told their retirements may not be fully funded. People are leaving. Over 100,000 residents left Illinois in just one recent year. The tax base is shrinking, the bills keep piling up, and the hole just keeps getting deeper. Unless something changes drastically, Illinois isn't just at risk of collapse, it's already halfway through it. This is more than just a list. These are real places, real people, real futures. From Connecticut's quiet debt crisis to Illinois' looming fiscal disaster, these states are flashing red, and many are still being ignored. Elon Musk wasn't exaggerating when he warned about the collapse of core systems. What's happening in these 10 states isn't politics. It's survival. Infrastructure is cracking. Education is shrinking. Families are leaving. And unless bold, serious action is taken soon, we may all pay the price. Because these aren't just states, they're homes, their lives, they're the foundation of a nation. So now we've seen it all: 10 states, each with their own warning signs, each with challenges that can no longer be brushed aside. From Illinois, where debt is burying the future, to Alaska, where the land itself is slipping into the sea, and places like Maryland and California, where illusion hides instability. These aren't random issues. These are patterns, warnings, and if we're being honest, they're a mirror. Because these states aren't the exception anymore, they're becoming the rule. Public pensions that were promised but now sit underfunded, schools that were once the pride of a community, now overcrowded and underpaid, hospitals shutting down in small towns, water systems that haven't been upgraded since the 1950s, families working 2 or 3 jobs just to survive in states that used to be middle-class dreams. And here's what makes it worse. Many of these states once led the way. They were symbols of what was possible, of what America could be. Now, they're holding themselves together with duct tape and borrowed money, hoping the next storm, the next recession, the next crisis doesn't tear everything apart. If this video opened your eyes, even just a little, don't let it end here. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the stories they aren't telling. Click like if you believe we need more truth, not less, and share this with someone who still thinks everything is fine. Because they need to see this too. We're not done, not by a long shot. Stay informed. Stay alert, and as always, stay curious, because the next crisis might already be knocking.